Hello, this is TelecomTV. We are at the Wireless Global Congress here in London, and I'm talking with Jaap Groot, who is Vice Chair Europe at the LoRa Alliance. Jaap, good to see you and thanks for talking to us. Let's begin at the very beginning, shall we? What is the LoRa Alliance and why is there a liaison with the WBA?
Well, first of all, good morning. Thank you for inviting me. The LoRa Alliance is an industry body that brings together like-minded people around the LoRaWAN protocol, supported by approximately 500 companies around the world now. Started about 3 years ago, and we have thought the approach to the Wireless Broadband Alliance, being an industry body for Wi-Fi, because the two technologies that we mutually support are very complementary, and in the end will address the Internet of Things in a proper way and address the use cases that both Wi-Fi and LoRa can service to bring solutions to yourselves, the industry, operators, anybody that would like to deploy solutions in the Internet of Things.
All right, let's get into it a bit deeper as far as the technicalities are concerned. What is LoRa and what is LoRaWAN?
Very good question, because people mix them up all the time. So LoRa is basically the radio modulation. It stands for long range. Very simple. People abbreviated the two words to a term called LoRa. This LoRa technology that was developed many years ago has been put onto chips that are being sold into the market like Wi-Fi chips. And people build solutions around that. Now, the uniqueness of the LoRa radio modulation is basically focused on two things: long range, as you can imagine, and low power consumption. So whenever you use a LoRa sensor, you don't have to worry too much about availability of networks. Because of the long range, you will find an antenna or multiple antennas easily to connect to. And second, the low power will give you the ability to connect that same sensor for many years on a simple coin cell or AA battery. So if we then go to LoRaWAN, this is a standardized global protocol driven by the LoRa Alliance in order to make sure that when we manufacture devices, they operate on networks. Because the networks are being rolled out in over 100 countries now, you want to make sure that if you take a sensor that is manufactured in China, it will work in a network in the UK or in the US. And the other way around, network equipment that is manufactured in the US by one of the members like Cisco will work in a European network in Orange in France. So the importance of the alliance is basically driving this standard, making sure that everybody adheres to the standard, much like the WBA with its Wi-Fi standards, and make sure that the certification programs around the networks as well as the sensors are put in place, such that users, as you and I, or enterprises, can be assured that the devices will perform according to the specs that have been defined.
We talk a lot, I certainly do, I'm sure you do as well, to service providers and about what service providers are doing, how the vendors are meeting their obligations in regard to that or not meeting them, as the case may be. We don't tend to spend a lot of time talking about the consumer, the end user in the home. What are the benefits of LoRa as far as those domestic users are concerned?
Yeah, the industry initially kicks off with new technology in enterprise. That is very normal for new technologies, and it's also very normal that it takes a little bit of time. When I said before, it took about 5 to 7 years for us to get here where we are. So that's already a slightly long tail, and IoT is taking us in a much longer tail, certainly if we later bring in the 5G element in the discussion. But going back to your question about enterprise, so that market is fully moving. We sell tens of millions of chips into water metering solutions, into utilities for gas metering, into industry solutions for parking or smart city solutions for air quality, all kind of stuff, enterprise-centric. The next step will be, and where the true volume is how we get to 50 billion connected objects in the longer run, is in the homes, in the consumer space. So in consumer space, in your house, in my house today, we have a few connected devices. Everybody uses Wi-Fi already. There are some other techniques that are being implemented, and LoRa is penetrating there through set-top boxes and Wi-Fi repeaters that we plug into the wall, basically use your Wi-Fi backhaul, but do LoRa in the house. And now all of a sudden your washing machine or your leak detection or your water meter or even your door sensors for security can be connected using LoRa. And why is LoRa so important here in the home now? Because you and I, we understand technology to a certain level. but my mom doesn't understand SSID or doesn't understand passwords, all the difficulties that come with, let's say, alternative solutions. So meaning that things should be connected out of the box, and that is what LoRa can bring. LoRa is a technology that you can put in the factory on your sensor, and once it's brought to the consumer, it will pop up, it will connect to the network, and it will start transmitting the data for the purpose that the sensor was designed for.
So LoRa is integral really to the proper development of IoT.
I even would say LoRa takes the O out of IoT. We basically move to an IT space that we all know. My kids, I don't have to talk about IT. They use their laptops or their Fitbits or their smartwatches like the devices that they were designed for. They don't talk about operating system. They don't talk about wireless connectivity. If they ask me, it's always that the machine is broken. It's not about the wireless connectivity, who is actually broken, or maybe the router who is down, or all that stuff that comes behind. So I believe that if we manage to take the O out of IoT and move to what Microsoft has done with the operating systems that they support, or Apple has done with iOS, if we can get to that level, then we can get to 50 billion devices. And LoRa enables that by making it robust, making it simple, and making it cost effective.
Thank you. Now, you mentioned 5G just now. Let's get into that. What is your vision for 5G, and how does that chime with LoRa and the LoRa Alliance and the WBA?
So 5G is a term that seems to be, let's say, very hyped, like blockchain or like artificial intelligence, all these things. Anyway, 5G is coming. BT just announced today at this event that they are doing 5G real-world trials, which are all driven towards a couple of features that today are maybe not even needed, because you and I don't ask for 5G on our mobiles. But if we go into a connected car world, you want low latency, you want very high throughput, things that are, let's say, orthogonal towards LoRa. We don't focus on those aspects. We are completely focused on low bit rates, on low power, and maybe a latency that is a little bit higher, because it doesn't matter to me if my water meter reports now or 2 seconds later. So in 5G, there is a definition of what they call critical IoT, which will typically be driven by the cellular operators, we presume, because they can provide that critical access in terms of security, in terms of latency, and in terms of throughput. We, however, also believe that the massive IoT will be, the 50 billion, will be in objects which are much more simple, which require very, very low-cost solutions, and which are not necessarily always connected to a network, but just pop out their information when they need to, or provide a heartbeat to make sure that they're still alive.
Final question to you then. We've talked about the theory, we've talked about how you expect things to go. What about use cases? What's actually happening out there? Can you give us some ideas where hybrid Wi-Fi and LoRa solutions are being used, that come together and they're actually being used now? Yeah,
I'd like to give you a few examples, because at the end, this technology push doesn't serve us, right?
It's the proof of the pudding is in the
eating, as we say. Correct. So let me give you 2 examples of also why we are here. First of all, people started developing hybrid devices where you had Wi-Fi and LoRa on board, for a purpose that maybe is clear today, but wasn't certainly in the beginning. So all these devices that go around and that roam around networks, whether in country or in international environments, need often to be located. Where is this device? Where is the asset that it is attached to? LoRa has inherent geolocation capabilities, but obviously LoRa is not everywhere yet, nor do we go down to, let's say, meter accuracy. However, Wi-Fi has a very good capability to do geolocation. So when you think about a hybrid use case, think about a pallet, a container, some object that is traveling, where you can do LoRa location to a certain accuracy, or maybe is the device still in the safe zone or in the parameter where it should be. And once you go downtown and it starts moving from street to street, you use the Wi-Fi SSIDs to track it down. Right? That's a very clear use case where those technologies kind of meet in the device. A second option is what we see more and more happening is what we call hybrid networks, where people, the access points that are being deployed for Wi-Fi, whether in your home, which is a router, called a router, not a real access point, or in a hotspot in cities, contain both technologies. Meaning that a smart city who signs up for a program to deploy, let's say, connectivity for its citizens, automatically deploys a LoRa network and can provide the connectivity that comes with LoRa for smart city solutions, like I mentioned, parking, for example, streetlights, connected streetlights to reduce power consumption, but also simple things as air quality to make sure that the citizens are protected against pollution, or at least we know what kind of pollution is happening. So the use cases that we see developing and that are enabled by the technologies that are now, let's say, LoRa and Wi-Fi on top of each other, are covering about 95% of all visible use cases, staying out of those areas where critical IoT will need, let's say, high throughput, because that is typically a thing that LoRa cannot do.
Very, very interesting. Jaap Groot, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.